So I am here with Miss Audrey Smith, and Audrey has been working with her church, Chester United Methodist, in a neighborhood called Greenlee. And Audrey, can you tell us a little bit about Greenlee and how you got connected to working with that neighborhood?
Greenlee is a mobile home trailer park located off Route 1 in southern Chesterfield. There are 550 mobile homes, about 900 families, and almost 2,000 children between the age of 0 and 18 who live in the neighborhood. For many years, Chester UMC has done mission for people in the neighborhood, building flower beds, food ministries, and those kinds of ministries. So in January of 2020, we started an asset-based community development listening project in the neighborhood.
And so tell us what happened next. Anybody who knows 2020 knows things got a little crazy, right?
So we were able to do that during the winter, and we had 6 students who participated. And we were able to, they were able to collect about 30 plus surveys. And then COVID-19 appeared on the face of the earth, and stay-at-home orders. And so we had to stop that in mid-March.
So tell us some of the challenges of doing the listening project with this particular community. What was one of the biggest challenges pre-COVID?
Pre-COVID would be that 90% of the residents are Hispanic, and so we needed to have the neighborhood strength surveys both in English and in Spanish. And the youth collected them were bilingual, English and Spanish. So when mentors from Chester went into the homes, the families welcomed us warmly. And we sat there, and only one of us was bilingual in Spanish, but we sat there and listened, and at least we felt the warmth of being invited to their homes and listening without really understanding what was going on.
So the students that were part of the listening project were residents, they lived there, and did they all speak Spanish? Were they bilingual?
All of the students are bilingual.
So were they in a position to actually help your church members interpret and understand what was being said?
Yes, we actually did complete a spreadsheet with all the information in there, and the students were able to help with that work as well.
So when you think about the asset that you were able to leverage in that season, how would you identify the asset?
The asset would be building relationships with the youth in the neighborhood in a matter of about 8 weeks.
And so then COVID hits, so they do their 30 surveys. They're starting to get an understanding of what their community cares about. Your church members are starting to build some relationships with the young people, and then bam, COVID hits. And if you were like me, you kind of thought it's going to blow over. We'll get back to normal. Normal is not coming back in the same way. And so you're having to reimagine. What happened to those relationships during this period of time?
Well, periodically, I would check in with the youth leader and to make sure they were all right and if their family needed anything. But also there was another person in the neighborhood who was a person of peace, a minister of introduction. And she reached out to us one time about some basic needs that needed to occur. And so we did bring some food. She actually wrote a grocery list instead of just taking the usual canned supplies. She wrote a grocery list. And so we went to the grocery store and helped that particular family. There is another mentor from Chester who continued to check on other families in the neighborhood during this time.
So you built those relationships with the families through the listening project, and you were able to maintain those relationships because they were established when you could go sit in somebody's living room and have a conversation. And I know that you guys, like many churches, are very, very concerned about the students as we're preparing to go virtual in Chesterfield County. And you mentioned that the associate principal at Elizabeth Scott Elementary in Chesterfield County shared with you that they'd lost contact with up to 50% of their families. How is Chester coming alongside the school to help alleviate that challenge, specifically within Greenlee, where you have some relationships?
Well, reimagining is the word. So in communicating with the mentors about how do we go back into the neighborhood, we just really did not have any idea. And it just so happens that Chesterfield County Public Schools reached out to faith leaders in the community about virtual learning and the fear that there would be increased gaps because of it. And so then I reached out to the elementary school there, Elizabeth Scott Elementary School. And so our pastors and mentors and I had a conversation with her where she described what's going on, that since March, they have not been able to be in communication with about 50% of the children in that neighborhood. And so they're concerned about their general welfare, even before academics. And so we said we could be boots on the ground because we have relationships already. We have youth who receive stipends for their work for the surveys. And so we have a youth leader who's in our group. And so right now we're making plans on how to get into the neighborhood and deliver flyers that the school is going to get to us specifically for that neighborhood.
Excellent. And you also have been a part of designing that flyer or helping them think about. So how have you guys used what you know about the community to help the school make that communication as helpful as possible?
Sure. We have an associate pastor who is bilingual. And one of the things he related to us in his prior work is that when school systems communicate with Hispanic people, they still write as if they're speaking to an English audience. And so he and the assistant principal have talked about how to communicate so that all families can be able to understand and act on that information. And so that's how the flyer is going to be designed. Information went out in the mail, but we all know that it was too much, too lengthy, or too wordy. So it's going to be redesigned. The back to school information is going to be redesigned specifically for this Spanish-speaking neighborhood.
You mentioned that only one member of your team, your Chester team initially, I believe that's Vince, was bilingual. Is that the case?
That's true. That's true.
Tell me about Vince and what has he done to sustain these relationships during a very difficult season?
Because Vince was already in relationship with one family in the neighborhood, he's continued to go in. This family we already interviewed during the listening projects, and they have 3 teenagers, and those teenagers wondered if he would do Bible study with them. And so he's been able to do that on a consistent basis.
So your church, while you're asking all the same questions all the other Chesterfield United Methodist churches are asking, what is beautiful about what you've been able to do is those relationships within the community, specifically with the young people. This is not the first rodeo for your church. You guys did the exact same thing in the Broadwater neighborhood years ago. So when you think about what you see within your church, when you go beyond just the handouts, but you're really in relationship, how has that transformed the church, specifically the people engaged in this kind of opportunity?
So the people engaged in this opportunity see individuals for who they are, and they're not part of a group or a stereotype that might be associated with a particular group. When we went into homes, the people really welcomed us and invited us in. What the church also realizes is that relationships help to build leadership, and that's the ultimate goal, that we want the youth to be leaders and lead in their neighborhoods, and this already prepares them for success in life. So we know that just by getting into a relationship and almost otherwise getting out of the way, that the youth will come along into who they were called to be and meant to be.
Wonderful. Audrey, thank you so much for the amazing work that you guys are doing at Chester UMC. And I love watching your church, because even when this gigantic cloud came over your listening project, you didn't give up. You guys have persevered just like you did in Broadwater. And I just want to applaud you. And I hope that your story is helpful to other churches that are thinking about, how do we make a real difference during this very, very challenging time? So thank you so much. Anything else you want to say to the churches?
It takes one person who's willing to get the ball rolling and persist at it. So find out who that one person is that's being called to start the project, and then all the other things will fall in place.
Thank you so much for saying that, because so often I hear people say, I can't get the church, meaning like everybody in the church. And so just for context, your team that has facilitated this, how big is that team?
We have 4 mentors.
4 mentors. And because of those 4, you connected to how many young people?
9
young people, and you worked in partnership with the Chester Y. I think it's really
YMCA. And we have about 1,400 members in our congregation. And when we went into Broadwater, we only had about 9 mentors. So there are people in congregations who are called to this work. So find those people and therefore go.
Thank you so very much. And I can't wait to hear of this next chapter once school starts and what you guys are learning from your families. Thank you so very much.
You're welcome, Wendy.